Shout out to Alabama. What up? Alabama Prisoner Profiles. I got to check that out.
DC, the voice, Alabama Prisoner Profiles. What's going on with y'all, man? First thing, man, sorry I ain't dropped a video off of y'all last week, man. I've been fighting something, a little cold or something like that. I'm just now barely getting over this shit. I might be a little nasally, but hey, man, we hit 1,000 subscribers, man. Hey, man, shout out all y'all, man. Y'all know what's going on. We pushing forward, you know what I'm saying? We back in effect. I don't know what y'all thought, if I had gave this shit up or what, but we finna go ahead and kick this one off. Y'all know what's going on. Make sure y'all get at me in the email, in the comments, in the DMs. Y'all know what's going on. We got special shit coming down the pipe for y'all now. I guess I'll go ahead and announce we only about 2,200 watch hours from getting monetized, you know what I'm saying? We got like 1,800, you know what I'm saying? So that's 2 out of 3 little side goals, you know what I'm saying? But y'all know what's going on with that, man. In this installment today, we got another Alabama prisoner making headlines in the news, Mr. Jordan Andrew Thomas, a.k.a. Montgomery's finest. All right, jumping into facts of bro case. It says, on the evening of October 9th, 2012, Dennis Johnson, Kenethia Wilson, Corey Morris, DeAndre Hale, Parrish Anderson, and Frederick Pierce were at Pierce's residence on Doris Circle in Montgomery. Shout out Montgomery 334, stand the fuck up. While Johnson sat on the porch, a Nissan Altima automobile pulled behind the vehicle parked in the front yard. Wilson asked Johnson who was in the Altima, and Johnson replied that it was Jordan Thomas. Wilson asked Johnson if he was alright because she knew that Johnson and Thomas had, quote, prior altercations, and Johnson replied that he was fine. Wilson went inside the house, and shortly thereafter she heard gunshots and turned around to see Thomas shooting a black handgun. Wilson testified, quote, everybody in the house started getting down, so after the shot, I could see Thomas, he was backing up. He backed up to the car. Quote, and that's when DeAndre Hale was fixing to run out the door to return fire, but Thomas again shot at the door. DeAndre backed up, and once Thomas got in the car, DeAndre went back out the door and returned fire. Thomas rolled the window down and shot out the window. Quote, by that time, I looked over and seen Johnson was lying down. He just kept hollering, I'm hit, I'm hit, I'm hit. So I ran over there trying to get him up, but he was too heavy. So Parrish Anderson and Frederick Pierce came to help me get him up. Wilson and Anderson placed Johnson in a car and drove him to a hospital where he later died. Wilson testified that Johnson had a firearm on him the evening and it didn't come out of his pocket until after they were picking him up off the ground. Wilson testified that she never saw Johnson fire the gun or have it in his hand that evening. Now, first of all, condolences to Mr. Johnson right there and his family. As far as for Mr. Thomas, then what you pull up hanging out the window, bitch, I keep a stendo, it's Slaughter Gang set. Hey man, speaking of Slaughter Gang, y'all saw 21 Savages in the new Call of Duty. I gotta get me another system, bro. I'll be going the fuck in. But damn, that's crazy, you know what I'm saying? Just, you know what I'm saying, according to these folks' testimony, you know? Continuing, Pierce testified that he went outside after the shooting stopped and that he washed blood off his porch and picked up spent shell casings. Pierce threw the shell casings in a trash can and later notified law enforcement of their location. Pierce also picked up a .38 caliber Rossi brand revolver from his yard and took it into the house. Pierce testified to his knowledge the gun had not been fired. On cross-examination, Pierce testified that he had seen Johnson with a .38 caliber revolver earlier in the day. Pierce also testified that there was no, quote, bad blood, quote, between him and Thomas, and that he had never told Thomas to stay away from his residence. I don't know if y'all can hear that siren, y'all know what's going on, but hold on. Yeah. Corey McQueen testified that he, Thomas, and Sean Williams were together on the evening of October 9, 2012. McQueen testified that he was friends with individuals who were at Pierce's house that night. Thomas told McQueen that an individual named Bird, who owed Thomas's money, telephoned Thomas to tell him that he was at Pierce's house. Thomas asked McQueen to drive him there, and McQueen complied. When McQueen pulled up to the house, Thomas and Williams got out the car. McQueen suddenly heard gunshots, and Williams returned to the car. McQueen asked Williams where Thomas was, and Williams replied that Thomas was one of the ones up there shooting, quote. Thomas returned to the car and said to McQueen, quote, "Your homeboy trying to kill me." McQueen observed Johnson run to the side of the house and drop an unidentified object on the ground. McQueen then saw Hale come out of the house with an assault rifle and began shooting toward their car. McQueen drove away and Thomas continued to shoot toward the house while leaning out the window of the automobile. McQueen testified that up until that point, he had not seen Thomas with a gun. Eventually, McQueen and Thomas got out of the vehicle because they were angry with Thomas. No, McQueen and Williams got out of the vehicle because they were angry with Thomas for his involvement in the shooting. McQueen testified that the individuals who went to the hospital with Johnson telephoned McQueen later that evening and informed him that Johnson had been sitting on the porch with a gun in his lap. Man, when Up came out the house with that yop, that chop, that stick, that thing, you know what I'm saying? Detective Andrew Magnus of the Montgomery Police Department responded to the crime scene after Johnson had been taken to the hospital. Detective Magnus viewed the shell casing Pierce had placed in the trash can and determined that they came from two different weapons. Detective Magnus testified that he collected the revolver that had been in Johnson's possession and sent it to the Alabama Department of Forensic Science. Man, that's crazy there, as you all can see, conflicting stories and testimonies there. Moving on, after Detective Magnus left Pierce's house, he responded to the Criminal Investigation Division to interview witnesses. Detective Magnus interviewed the individuals who were present at Pierce's residence at the time of the incident, including McQueen and Williams. Detective Magnus testified that all witnesses' accounts of the incidents coincided. Detective Magnus testified that Thomas, accompanied by counsel, arrived at the police station the following day to provide a statement. Thomas's video-recorded statement was played for the jury. When giving his statement, Thomas informed Detective Magnus that when he went to hit Pierce's house to get $10 from Bird. Thomas stated there were several vehicles in Pierce's driveway and that after he walked past one car, he saw a man at the house holding an AK-47 assault rifle. Thomas stated he was nervous, but he tried to, quote, play it cool. Thomas stated there's a chair on Pierce's porch, but Johnson was not sitting in it. Thomas stated that he said, "What's up?" to Johnson, and Johnson replied, "You know what's up," in an aggressive manner. Well, Thomas stated that Johnson then, quote, upped an AK-47 at him. Thomas stated that he then looked at the screen door and saw an individual holding a shotgun open the screen door and aim the shotgun toward him. Thomas stated that he then heard two shots and saw that someone was shooting towards his car. Thomas stated that 3 to 4 people were shooting at that point and that he started shooting towards Johnson while running back to his car. Thomas stated he shot Johnson only twice. Thomas denied he shot his firearm first and that he followed Johnson, continually shooting him. Thomas informed Detective Magnus that he tossed his firearm from his car as he was driving on Interstate 85. Magnus testified law enforcement searched for it but couldn't find it. Thomas explained that McQueen and Williams called the police after the shooting because they were afraid of the people who had been at Pierce's house. Thomas stated the people were affiliated with the Blood Gang and described them as, quote, monsters. That, quote, you don't want to see them on the streets. Thomas confirmed that when he was 14 years old, he and Johnson had an altercation because Johnson had stolen a handgun from him. Following the viewing of Thomas's statement, Detective Magnus testified Thomas informed him that, quote, he was real cool with everyone in the house. Dr. Stephen Bordeaux, a medical examiner for the state of Alabama, performed an autopsy on Johnson and testified that Johnson died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds. Hot damn, that's wild. Now, Mr. Thomas would go and be convicted of murder and sentenced to 75 years to serve in the Alabama Department of Corrections. About 5 years into his sentence, he was given a retrial and again was convicted and given a life sentence within the Alabama Department of Corrections. So dude's serving his time. About another decade almost goes by up until about last week or the week before when he makes the news here.
This man, a convicted murderer identified as 30-year-old Jordan Andrew Thomas, is on the run. He escaped from Staten Correctional Facility in Elmore County. Thomas stands 5 feet 8 inches tall. He weighs approximately 120 pounds. If you see him, call 911.
All right, we got another news article. The search for an inmate serving a life sentence for murder who escaped from Staten Correctional Facility in Elmore has come to an end with his recapture. According to the Alabama Department of Corrections, Jordan Andrew Thomas escaped at approximately 11 a.m. on Monday, August 7th. He remained on the run for almost exactly a week to the hour before he was located in Montgomery around 6 a.m. on Monday. The Department of Correction, Law Enforcement Services Division, U.S. Marshals, Regional Task Force, blah, blah, all these law enforcement folks found Thomas in the 7200 block of Troy Highway in Montgomery. The 30-year-old was taken into custody without incident and transported to Kilby Correctional Facility for processing as he now faces an escape first-degree charge. Man, 30 years old. I'm 30, you know what I'm saying? I get to thinking, like, you know what I'm saying, about where motherfuckers could be in life, you know what I'm saying? Different, you know what I'm saying? Different upbringings. But anyway, what's up with all these escapes here recently, you know what I'm saying? Decent amount of escapes, you know what I'm saying? All from Staten and Elmore, like them little places, them little 3-4 prisons right down there that are all on the same road and shit like that. What's going on down there? I mean, you can see what's going on there. We got fucking COs getting inmates to kill motherfuckers and all type of shit going on, but that's wild. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. DC, Alabama Prisoner Profiles, The Voice, out the gate.